right. For anybody who's just joining us, thank you for being here tonight. I will introduce our special guests in a minute. We've got about 3 more minutes before we will get started. So take this time to get comfy, get some water, some snacks, and we'll get started in about 3 minutes.
Checking out these Kickstarters.
That's the best part about doing these panels is like getting to check out everyone's
Relax.
Kickstarters afterwards and being like, wow, look at all these awesome things that are happening.
Cool.
So they're talking about some Kickstarters that they have. I will put their links in the chat and the Q&A box as well near the end of this presentation. So that way you can see the cool stuff that they're working on, which they're going to be talking about tonight. So again, for anybody that's new jumping on, thank you for joining. And we'll get started in about 2 minutes. So yeah.
I really love your glasses, Lauren.
Thank you.
Are they
Like
octagons, hexagons?
Kind of, and then they've got little cat ears at the top.
That's awesome.
Yeah, those are awesome.
I mean, I'm a librarian, so it kind of fits the theme.
They're great.
Thank you. Are those your artworks behind you, Russell?
They are. When I don't, my computer can't do Zoom backgrounds. So, and envious, I just remade all of my stuff to like take all of the paintings that I've done over the years and put them behind me.
It's a good background.
Thank you. This is our mascot.
For Wannabe Press?
Yes.
My computer does Zoom backgrounds and I really love them, but every once in a while it'll like die and then suddenly see my basement.
Yeah.
It's not organized right now.
Mine will only do my eyes, like my glasses. Like I will have a Zoom background in my glasses and nowhere else.
Ew.
That's
just like,
magical.
I would rather just be floating eyes with a Zoom background everywhere else. But
exactly.
That does sound a little creepy. I won't lie.
Well, neither are ideal.
That entity in Star Trek just floating in space, that it's just the eyes and the lips.
Although that would be a good intro for a Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, so my clock and my phone all say it is 6:30. So to maximize the use of our time, why don't we go ahead and get started? Before I introduce to you our fabulous presenters, this is our panel, How to Craft and Submit to an Anthology. And before we get started, I did want to talk about our prizes. We've got 3 prizes to give out tonight, so make sure you stay to the very end, and then I will announce our 3 winners. We've got a blind bag that's full of, we got like a Funko Pop and maybe some D&D dice, some other goodies in there. We've got this huge Guardians of the Galaxy poster I'm talking it's huge and it's really cool. And then we also have a book by April Lynn Pike, who is our guest author for tomorrow. It is her book called Glitter. So like I said, stay tuned to the end, not just to hear their awesome panel, but to win some cool prizes too. All right, so, oh, and also we do have a Q&A feature at the bottom. Feel free to submit questions throughout, and I will make sure that at the end, if they aren't answered throughout the presentation, that they get asked. So again, that's the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. So with that said, I'm going to stop talking about the boring stuff. I'm going to introduce you guys. So we've got 4 awesome people with us tonight. We've got Russell Nolte, a USA Today best-selling author of Katrina Hates the Dead, editor of Cthulhu is Hard to Spell anthology series, and hard to say as well, and a publisher at Wannabe Press. We've got Laurie Foster, a Bram Stoker award-nominated comic book inker and editor and owner of Unlikely Heroes Studios. We've got Fabrice Sapolsky, writer for Marvel Comics, creator of Spider-Man Noir, and editor of Noir is the New Black. And last but not least, we've got Enrica Jang, editor of Red Stylo Presents and writer of Azteca, The House of Montresor, and the screenplay for Frenemies. So that's just a little brief introduction. I will let them talk more about their other works and everything. And with that said, I'm handing it off to you guys.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And I'm really excited because these are 3 of not just my favorite creators, but 3 of my favorite companies that do comics. So I hope you guys learn a lot from what we have to say, and also go and check out a bunch of cool books also when we're done. So Lauren, you did a great job. I want to just let you guys speak for a minute or so about each of your guys' companies. But I also feel like before we even get started on this hot topic, I'd like for you to answer the question, like, what is an anthology to you? Fabrice, why don't we start with you?
Oh, it's not ladies first? Damn. All right. An anthology is a compilation, is a collection that is curated, often by an editor or a publisher or a talent that assumes the mantle of the curator. It can be themed, but it can also be a kind of a free, liberating anthology where everyone can do whatever they want. I mean, the rules are made by the person who curates the anthology. I think that's a giving. But yeah, it's an anthology. It's a compilation, collection.
Do either Enrica or Laura, you have anything to add to that? Like, what is an anthology to you, or how does it differ from making a regular comic or a novel?
I would say it's a really good way to bring creators from all over the world who have never even met each other into a book together, working together on a theme or diverse themes or whatever it is. And like, I would add that, but Fabrice did really well.
Thank you.
Fabrice did very well. He did very well.
How do you come up with one of these for the theme for an anthology? Because I love all of the themes for your anthologies. Like they're not just interesting overall topic, but you did one that was like Jekyll and Hyde, and each side of the comic was like half of the, like you had to flip it over and you got the Hyde part, and you flip it over again and you got the Jekyll part. It was so cool. So how do you go about thinking about and coming up with the theme for an anthology?
Well, I think it does tie into what we were talking about, like definition of anthology. It's a collection of works connecting multiple creators. And I've seen versions where you have one writer and then a lot of different artists doing different pieces, connected kind of things. Sometimes it's a theme that's going to connect a bunch of different writers, a bunch of different artists. But there's something pulling, some idea pulling everybody together to make it an anthology rather than just a loose collection. So that's really important. I think when my company's Red Stylo Media, when we were first kind of thinking about how to pull this stuff together, we were looking for something that was going to have a commercial and literary love and interest already, something to kind of pull you in and be a magnet for things. But then also the rule was you had to twist on that theme and make it new so that you are truly creating something original, truly creating something that with this commonality of all the things that we love, whether it's Jekyll and Hyde, whether it's Dante's Inferno, some kind of theme that's going to pull it all together, but then giving all of the creators this opportunity to make it their own and twist on things, and that was required. So that's how we did it. I think the second rule about selecting the theme was what subject could we live with for a year that was going to take the time it was going to take to put this thing together that we weren't going to be sick of by the end of the year, because you're putting so many months of work into something. You have to love it the whole time. Otherwise the book, people can tell when the collection doesn't have any soul or any heart. Like, I can tell when you're not there. So you have to love it the whole time, and so it's got to be a really strong subject.
Absolutely. Fabrice, I'd love to talk to you about that, because you didn't only have a theme for the anthology as a whole, but you even had a theme when it came to the creators that you hired. So how do you think about theme when it comes to like putting together these anthologies?
So first I'm going to show it.
Yeah. Just had a starred review in Publishers Weekly.
Just had a star review this week, absolutely, in Publishers Weekly. So we're very proud of it. And it's published by Fair Square Comics, which is my company. First, I want to say something about the medium, because the comic book and graphic novel medium lends itself pretty organically to such a venture as an anthology, because by design, comics are a collaborative medium. So you have from the inception of our industry, you've had people working together. I mean, the first comics that were published in the 1930s and 40s, they had multiple stories, multiple short stories in them. They might have been like leaflets, periodicals, but they had multiple stories. People forget that in the first issue of Action Comics, which is the first appearance of Superman, you had a backup story. Superman was actually 16 pages, but you had another story after that. So and over the years it grew, and it's only quite recently that comics have become this thing where you have periodicals with a one story thing that is serialized, and then you have compilations that are another format. But initially, it's how it was designed. It was designed like this, as a collection, and with things that didn't necessarily have something in common. So it's great that we added a little glue to all this. But in my case, it grew out of necessity. When the idea of Noir is the New Black came to be, it was because I was angry. I was angry at everything that was happening in America, in the streets, and I remember exactly the day when that idea came to me. I was on the phone talking to my good friend T.C. Harris, who is a journalist and now an editor with me, and he owns a Black media website. And out of my window in LA, I could hear the demonstrations. And I'm an immigrant. I'm very careful, especially under the previous administration. I was very careful of everything that was saying online or outside, because, you know, when you get your green card, people tell you that you're a guest and that you can be deported anytime. And that was actually told to me. And so I wanted to extend my invitation and not leave. So I paid very much attention. And so I was angry because I didn't know how to react and be a good ally that I am in light of the events that we had last year. And my friend TC, who is a Black activist, by design, and he runs in his family. He said, like, look, man, don't stop it. Don't stop you from doing something. You can do comics. This is what you do. Let's do this together. And this is what we did. And the theme became obvious because, I mean, I started my career with Spider-Man Noir, so I'm kind of identified as a noir person. Yay! I'm kind of identified as a noir person, and you see I'm wearing a T-shirt here. Join the Kung Fu Noir revolution, because one of my other IPs, Intertwined, is a Kung Fu Noir book. So it was kind of a natural leap to go from Spider-Man Noir, Intertwined, Noir is the New Black, and the way it was curated, it was kind of an invitation only first, but then it grew. And I guess we're going to talk about it. It took a life of its own. I didn't really expect it to be what it became, like 16 stories, because initially it was only 12. So, but when you start that journey, and especially, and again, I think we're going to talk about Kickstarter and crowdfunding. uh, your limitation is your budget. So if you can go as far as you can to make the best possible anthology you can, why limit yourself to the initial model if you can do more? And I mean, when you start your campaign, you have big names of our industry that call you and say, "Hey, I want in." Are you going to turn down now? No, you're going to let them in and say, "Hey, welcome. This is we'll push the walls and we make the house bigger."
Yeah, I love that. And Enrica and Fabrice have anthologies that are quite tight as far as their theme goes, but they're some of the best anthologies and most famous anthologies, Eisner-winning anthologies, have no or very loose theme. Flight is one that comes to mind. My friend DJ Kirkbride did a book called Pop Gun, which had literally no theme at all.
Pop Gun was great.
Pop Gun was amazing. It had literally no theme. And Lori is kind of falls on the opposite end of the spectrum, because like your pitch for your anthology is it's amazing. I love it. The more I think of I didn't understand it, and the more I thought about it, the more I loved it, and the more I was like, I wish I had submitted to that anthology. Could you talk a little bit about your theme?
Sure. Yeah. I was going to say, everyone has these wonderful focus themes. So yeah, with our anthology is called Elsewhere. And I'm trying to think of how to, because it is weird to describe. So basically we wanted something that it wasn't a unified theme, but it brought stuff together. So how we have it is each story kind of starts with the Elsewhere caption, and it allows us to jump around in dimensions and space and time and genre. But we do still kind of collect the anthology in a way so that everything flows. It's not just random stuff, and then it's all tied together, bouncing around elsewhere. So it's like everything kind of takes place in one universe, but bouncing around dimensions.
Yeah, so you can really do, if you're thinking about an anthology, you can do tight or loose. I have done both. I did the Monsters and Other Scary, bad word, I won't say on camera, anthology, and it was about monsters. And the thing that people told me when that was over was they really wanted it to be a tighter theme. And so that's what moved me into doing The Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. And also what moved me from doing closed submissions to open submissions. And I'd love if one of you guys could talk about your choice of whether you do. I know Enrica and Lori do open submissions, at least for some of their books, and Fabrice did closed submissions. So I'd love for you guys to talk a little bit about the choice that you made as far as how you started curating your anthology, whether you, and maybe Enrica, do you want to talk a little bit about what closed versus open submissions are?
Sure. Open submissions, there is a call that goes out, and the company outlines the rules, outlines their guidelines, but then opens the invitation out to just anybody who happens to find that portal to submit. And you are just an open call for folks who you might not know to jump in, whereas closed submissions are highly curated because whoever's putting the project together is reaching out specifically to people with an idea of putting their project together. So those two things. Red Stylo does do open call. We do it once a year because open call submissions are pretty hard to run. It's not just put the word out there and somebody's going to come along and say, hey, I want to do this. You have to really broadcast and try to cast as wide a net as possible. You do get a lot of submissions, probably a lot more, just the nature of the beast, you get a lot more writers than artists. And so going through all of those submissions, open submissions, I think are probably a lot tougher to run from the putting the bookend together. I'm sure it's sort of nerve-wracking for people who submit for them too, because you have no idea necessarily the whole team that's coming together for the thing. But
so that's truly open submission. So when you do submissions, you say you can just apply as an artist or a writer and then be matched later, or to figure out your team later, right?
Our team, our books, yes. We do put teams together. Now you can submit as a team if you are an artist and writer who found each other, or if you're one of those wonderkins who can do everything. There aren't that many of those folks out there, but every once in a while you find them. They can do all the work together, and they want to. So we do leave that open to folks. I think one way that we try to sort of cut down on the we don't ask for just send us your pitch. What we do is we ask you introduce yourself to us. So show us your socials. Even if you're a student, even if you've never published before, at least show us something online that you have done before so that we can get a sense of you. And then we show you, this is what we want, and we need you to sign this release, understanding that you're submitting an idea to us. It's never a send me your ideas and then we sift through all the ideas. It's introduce yourself, show us who you are, and then come in. But it's I think when people are just starting out or first starting out, you might not have a lot of work. You might not have, but everybody's on social media now. So even that stuff counts. And then start to think about putting together some of these pieces, even if they've never been published before. Start to collect the work that you want to do, that you're starting to put together, and be ready to show it to someone when it's time.
Absolutely. How about you, Laurie? How do you do your submissions?
It's similar, but a little different. We kind of just open them up to everyone. We're generally looking for completed submissions, but I have made exceptions for people who come to me with a concept or they're looking for a team, and we kind of end up doing what Enrica was saying, where we match them with other people. For the most part, though, we try to get completed submissions or a plan for a completed submission with a team that comes with it.
Yeah, that's how I do it too. I want you to at least have your artist and writer if you're going to do it in open submission. And frankly, the more you have, the better chance you have of getting into the book. Like one of the hardest things for me and for most people is like getting that pitch down to like one paragraph or like one sentence. And I know so many people who make amazing books that can't pitch to save their life. And like, so having the more stuff you can have and the more material you can have when you submit just makes your case all the stronger of why you should be accepted, right? Fabrice, let's go to you, because you did it differently with your book, and I'm sure
Yes.
and I'm sure you've done it both ways in your long and illustrious career.
Well, interestingly enough, this was my first ever anthology. Because I've been editing and making comics for a very long time, but never in this format, and especially not in this time frame, because it's something that we need to talk about. When you're doing an anthology, you have to get it out the door, especially when you're doing a crowdfunding. You have to get it out the door in not in a year, like in a matter of months, so that people don't lose interest and you don't lose momentum from the moment you got your money. Or people grow impatient, because this is an industry where paradoxically people are impatient. So they want to have their books. And for me it was different, but as a whole, and not just for anthologies, I have this document that I have on the website of my company. We have a submission page that is for everybody. If you have a project and you fit the theme or the publishing plan that we have, you have a chance. So you can go on fairsquarecomics.com/submissions, and you have the way to our heart or to our soul. And a part of this is a document that is a pitch document. The pitch document is something that I designed years ago when I was working for Humanoids. This is one of the first things that I designed for them when I arrived there. They didn't have any process for submissions. They didn't have open submissions. They didn't have anything. So I designed this pitch document because it's also a matter of how much time as an editor do I want to invest in reading other people's stuff. And you get flooded by a lot of pitches, especially when you're a big publisher. You have 10, 15, 20 pitches every day. It's a lot of work. So when everything gets into your inbox, you want to design a tool that will help you go through it without being hurtful for creators who put a lot of time and effort and energy into this. So I created this one sheet that everyone can download from our website. So you guys, if you don't have one and you want a copy, feel free to do it. You're welcome. And it has a bunch of stuff that you need to formulate that is really short. And as you said, Russell, it's very hard for a lot of people to get through that tedious process of simplifying their concept into an elevator pitch or a 5-line pitch or even a 10-line pitch. But once they get to it, you have a clearer idea of what you want. So for the anthology, we did exactly the same thing. We selected a few creators, I mean, at least 20 creators, and we sent them this. And what are you going to do? But the interesting thing is that when we started the campaign, we had a verbal agreement with those creators, but we had no pitch. We had nothing, absolutely nothing. And because I was a little superstitious and I didn't want to start too early, I didn't start until I knew that the campaign was going to go through and we were going to get financed. So this is only on the 3rd week of the campaign out of 4 that I started sending the pitch documents and that people started pitching, which is insane. Because usually, and especially now, a lot of those creators and a lot of the Kickstarter campaign, everything is almost ready to go when the campaign hits start. But that was not my experience. I did everything backwards. So, and that's also why you have names on the campaign that are not in the book, because these stories didn't make the cut. Because precisely, sometimes you get 2 stories that are too close to each other and you have to select one. And or sometimes you have a creator that doesn't really understand the theme and he's offering you something that is either too formulaic or something that has been done before. And that's also the virtues of curation. You want to have a collection that is the best possible collection that you can have according to your own standards. And my standards are not Erica's standards. They're not Lori's standards. They're not your standards. These are my standards. This is it. I'm the editor and this is my standards. So, but you try not to break a few friendships and you try to be, nice with people, and usually it works. It's not because they're not making the cut that they won't for the next time. And it's not because they are not invited this that you won't have them on something else. And I guess out of the, I don't know, I mean, we ended up having 16 stories, but we had something like 22 pitches. So we knew from the start that not everyone would have been admitted in the thing. So, but yeah, it's definitely a process to go through all this, and you have to be prepared in advance for something like that, and spend as little as possible time determining what's the closest thing to your goal in terms of editorial goal, and run with it.
You made a lot of really good points in there, Fabrice, especially when it comes to the submissions, which I think is a great segue into talking about the actual moving from editorial to actually you are a creator that is looking to submit. One thing I want to emphasize that Fabrice said is it is about curation, and every time I've ever done an anthology, there have been 2 stories that are very close to each other, or 5 stories that are very close to each other. There are different in page counts. People don't think about this. People are always, in my anthologies, trying to get to the highest page count. And I tell them, I'm not going to accept you. I'm going to accept 5 stories that are at the top of this page count, but I will accept 20 stories that are at the bottom of this page count, because it's almost no, I told someone our anthologies are 2, 4, 6, and 8 pages long. And prose does the same thing. It's 2,000 to 10,000 words. And I told people the people that submitted 2 pages had a 70% success rate of getting into this anthology. And the people that submitted 8 pages had a 10% success rate of getting this into this anthology. Not only because there were way less 2-page than 8-page stories, but just because an 8-page story takes up, even on a 200-page book, 5% almost of the page run. And unless you are an established creator, I mean, frankly, if you want 8 pages in my book, you have to be an established creator. You have to, not an established Marvel or DC name, but someone who I know will deliver. Because if I don't get 8 pages of a book back, it is going to seriously affect the anthology. Not getting 2 pages does nothing. Like, oh crap, these 2 pages were bad. Like I only have to pay a kill fee for 2 pages, not 8 pages. Like there's so many things that that can go wrong with an 8-page story that the standards are just way higher. Also, people's eyeballs will be on it for just so much longer. And so the art style matters. I've told people, hey, if you can get this down to 2 pages, like I would love to get this story. I personally love the art style, but it's not mainstream enough for like an 8-page story. Just I can't do it in that page count. I want to move to, long story short, I want to move to talking about the creators now, and we have a few questions that I think it would behoove us to answer now instead of later because they're relevant now. And so the first one is, if I'm a writer, how can I find anthologies that are looking for submissions? Anyone want to field that question?
That is really difficult because from our standpoint, it's hard to get the word out sometimes that we're looking. And we rely heavily on the people, the good Samaritans in the comics community who put those lists together in Reddit or something, like all of these people are accepting submissions or getting into a list. I think the publisher's SEO, when they put out the open call, is actually really important too, because people are looking for terms, submissions, this kind of thing. But that I would like to hear the answer to that question as well, because we're always trying to find people. And
I have an answer. My answer is I do it all through, as you mentioned, Reddit and Facebook groups. Like there are Facebook groups that literally are open, say open call. There's the comic book anthology creators one. There are ones for romance and sci-fi and fantasy. And usually if you're even in a writers group, like a Facebook writers group that doesn't necessarily do open calls, they will like allow you a day of pushing out things. You can call the or message the admin and ask them to put that out. I've done that before. Also, it's really a good idea to start going to libraries and going to Amazon and looking up companies that do anthologies. Like usually a company that does anthologies, it is a thing that they often do. Like it's you know, they're not doing it once and then never again. And especially if you can find one that on their website does, like Onishi Press is one that that I think about, does tons of anthologies. A Wave Blue World does a ton of anthologies. Like usually it's like a part of their business. And I know that for me, most people that I know have publishing companies, like they use the anthologies as a recruitment tool to like show people to bring on to other books, whether that is to give them a publishing contract as a novelist, or to bring them on to draw art, or to write a book in comics. But like a lot of bigger companies, it's hard for me to think of a big company that doesn't at least have anthologies as part of their submission, as part of their ecosystem, because it's a great way to recruit new talent and to show talent you've never worked for before how to deliver. So if you don't want to go to Facebook, you can go to your local library, or you can go to Amazon and type in anthologies. You can go to Kickstarter if you're in comics, and like there's an entire section that is under comic books for anthologies and under publishing for anthologies. A lot of anthology publishers, because anthologies don't pay well and they don't sell particularly well, they do Kickstarter because it's a way to deliver straight to like their diehard fans. And so yeah, I would go put open call submissions and just follow every Facebook group that has more than 1,000 or so people in it. If you write a specific genre, then make sure you do, like, there's some that are general, but there are plenty that are, I'm in a lot of like pulp ones, sci-fi, fantasy, pulp, comics, things that are relevant to my interests. And then I do keep like a list of whenever I see someone has an anthology, just like, okay, they do anthologies now. Because it's, while many publishers do, like, they don't all do anthologies. I know I made a general statement, but like, if a publisher does anthologies, they will probably continue to do anthologies. Anyone have anything to add to that?
Well, anthologies are a place of experimentation. So if you're ready, even to step out of your comfort zone and do something that you're not known for, you might as well stalk, as you said, a Kickstarter page, or even in the comic book world, we have the previews catalog. That is also a good place to start looking, because those anthologies end up resurfacing on the market at one point. So
Publishers Weekly too, if you do novels.
Publishers Weekly, yes. There are a lot of trades and publish and websites where you can find. You have indie comics centric websites that are covering that too. I mean, there are plenty of places, honestly.
All right, Laura, you have anything?
I do have one suggestion for the writers out there. I am not a comics artist, but I am a comics writer as well as an editor. And when it's trying to get my own work out and sort of seeing the anthology model of work, one thing I do encourage writers to consider doing is putting together an anthology of their own work. Not just a collection of your stories and little bits and stuff, because how you sell that, it's like, oh, this is my work. Well, who are you yet? Nobody knows who you are yet. But if you can put together a small collection of your own stories based on a theme, or your own collection of small things that tie cohesively together, then when you're pitching, selling your book to people or selling your collection, you're selling a theme, not just oh, well, I want to be a writer and I'm putting this stuff out there. Like, if you can show that you can write small little bits and then find artists to put these things together, you can put an anthology of your own work together. But I do suggest finding a theme that's going to make it cohesive, give somebody else a reason to buy it, not just this wonderful person, I want to discover their work, but this is a theme that's also kind of interesting and I want to see how it all comes together with the different artists. So that's a suggestion for writers on trying to put their own stuff together.
You just said something that is very important. And I would recommend to any writer or writer artist or writer that has access to an artist to actually do something really interesting, which is to work on one-page stories. This is the most difficult thing to do, is to write a one-page story. And when you are a writer, you are usually very generous with your writing. You're like, oh, let's do it, just like you said, Russell, 4 pages, 8 pages, 12 pages. Then you know that the rules of the anthology is like, oh, you're limited to 4 pages. Can I have 6? Can I have 8? Can I have 7? And you always get that. But the thing is, if you want to prove yourself, write and draw, or write and have drawn a one-page story and put it on your website or your blog or your Facebook or your ArtStation or whatever. And you will see that people will respect that, because they can tell a story in 1 page. That's difficult. And that's the thing to do to prove yourself, because no editor has the time to read 20 pages of script or 100 pages of script. Sometimes they don't even have the time to read your pitch. But if they see a one-page story, the art is decent and it makes sense and they're hooked, they will call you back.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so there's a couple of questions that tie in together. Since Enrique, you do a lot of the just artists or just writers pitch, this question is from Jeff Price. Do artists pitch also? And is their approach different than writers? And how? I'm assuming this is someone who doesn't have a story. They just want to submit maybe to find an artist. Another question is, if I write but don't illustrate, how do I find artists to make the artwork for the story? So I don't know if you can tie these together or take them separately, but I think you're probably the right person to answer this question if you do have an answer for it.
Well, I learned a lot from your answer just now, Russell, about finding more communities to plug into, more groups to talk to, that you can't go wrong there. And Facebook's got a lot of them, obviously, Reddit's got a lot of them. And so trying to plug yourself into a community. I encourage all creators at this point to invest in other creators as you build this network. And $1 on Kickstarter does that. You are showing that you are interested in your community. You show that you're interested in the work that is out there. And by supporting another creator, you can start that dialogue and say, listen, I don't have a lot of money. I'm just starting, but I want to kick in this $1 to show that I'm interested. And then you get to see all of that process Most people who do a Kickstarter, they're talking about how that work comes together and how they met their team. And you pick up those little things as time goes on. I found I made it so much harder on myself early, just trying to jump right in without my community yet. I had an internship and thought I'd learned a lot. And I had all these technical skills. And I think this is probably true of artists. They've been working on this craft for such a long time and putting these things together. And certainly writers spend a lot of time alone in their room crunching on this stuff, but getting into your community, plugging into your community and starting to support those other creators. When you start that dialogue, then you start to see how those networks work. And then you start to meet the people you want to work with. So that's, if you're just starting and you're starting to pull your portfolio together and venturing out, start supporting other writers at your level and the next level. And that way you're meeting those folks as you're all coming up. And that will be very important later.
What do you think, Laurie? You haven't talked for a little bit.
Everyone was just saying good stuff. Yeah, I think Enrica has some good points. Just kind of networking and meeting people and supporting them. I've found that I've met a lot of really cool writers and artists just supporting Kickstarters and talking to them. And, you know, you can't, I use a lot of Facebook groups for communicating with people. And like, you can't really just go in there and be like, who wants to make something for me for free? Like just for fun, because I'm amazing. I'm a really good writer. Like, but like, who are you? No one's ever seen you before. And if like you network and you support people and you talk to them and you build that up, like before you talk to artists about collaborating or working with you or whatever, I think it helps a lot.
So here's my answer for the Julie question. I don't have an answer for the Jeff question.
I have an answer for the Jeff question.
Okay, there you go. Fabrice.
If you're an artist, you have to remember that your main weapon is storytelling. So in a way, you're telling a story in panels. So you already are a storyteller. So the best, I mean, Jack Kirby, one of the greats, if not the greatest, was always telling stories without the balloons. He didn't need it. You could understand the story without even having anything to read. Frank Miller, Will Eisner, all these great, Mike Mignola, all these great creators, they always could create stories that you could read even without the bubbles, the balloons. And that's what you have to keep in mind. This is the best way of getting noticed. Storytelling. It's like Comics 101 starts with this. You don't need a writer, you just need a sense of storytelling.
And I will go one step further and say, if you find these places that are, you're probably going to go to like Reddit or somewhere to find these places that are doing submissions. It's like that's the easiest and biggest hub for these things. And if you type underneath, I'd love to pitch something, I'm not a writer, is anyone looking for an artist? You will get, I don't know, 300 replies. Like there's always the most engagement from that stuff. If you are an artist looking for a writer, it's a lot easier to work that than the opposite way around. For Julie, if you write but don't illustrate, how do you find artists? Enrica was talking about community, and I totally believe, like so my job as an art writer is not just to write a great thing, is to set up the opportunity for the artist. So like I will go to an artist and I will say, I have this anthology I'm thinking about submitting to. Are you interested in doing it if I get accepted? They will say yes or no. Now I have a little group of people who I can pretty much figure out, like, this feels like it would be an Angela story, or like this feels like it's a Nick story. This is an Eric story. And like I know just by like how I feel about the anthology. So I will usually find the opportunity, and then I will reach out to the artist and say, hey, I don't need you to draw anything now, but like, would you be willing to do 4 pages if I wrote the script and then it was good and then it got accepted? And, it was harder at first. It's a lot easier when you've published other people's work or when like you do an anthology. So my answer, honestly, Julie, is the best way is to do an anthology, like edit it, because everyone wants to be part of an anthology. No one wants to edit it. And if you can be the kind of person who edits the anthology and gives people the opportunity, like you will make loyal friends for life. as long as it's good. Now that is the caveat. Like you have to actually deliver on the promise and make it good and make it enjoyable and give them something that they are proud of at the end of it. But if you can do that, you will find a ton of artists who are willing to work with you. You'll find a ton of writers and who are willing to work with you because they want the opportunity, and that's what you have. But if you don't have that, then I recommend, go either look for these opportunity, look for the opportunity, and then try to in another anthology, and then go to an artist that you know and see if you can work together. But I don't ever recommend someone trying to find an artist really seriously until you have until like you know it's a go, or at least to caveat it by saying, because I don't submit to anthologies that you have to have the finished product done. Don't do it, because I don't think it's fair to the artist if it doesn't get accepted. Like it's fair to me. It only takes me a couple days to write a story. It takes them days, maybe weeks to draw it. So I always am like, I will only submit to anthologies that like don't need a finished script before they get accepted. And then I will take that, I'll pair an artist together contingent on them getting accepted. And once you know artists well enough, you will be able to, you will know their style and kind of their flow and like what's kind of stuff they're good at. You know, like my friend Nick is amazing at like doing action and comedy. My friend Angela likes these like really small beat moments. And like, if I can then design a story for them, I can be like, hey, this is something you're really going to want to draw too. And because we've now worked together for a while, you know, so it kind of goes back to Enrica and Fabrice's like make stories, like actually make the anthologies and make the pieces. And so that you know who you like and who you don't. And then also like making your own anthology is a great way to find new people. And also
stock artist student from sequential art sections.
Yeah.
Like art schools. There are tons of them who are ready for practice to have good stories. So first, be good, go against the grain. Don't do everything that the others do. Be you.
Yep. Okay, so this is a quiz, should be a quick one. One of the attendees asks, what age is the youngest age you can become a publisher?
18 years old.
A
Legally.
publisher?
Yeah.
Like a self-publisher? Your own self?
Technically, you're
5 years
responsible.
old. 4 years
5
old.
years old?
As soon as you're up on the refrigerator, you're published.
Well, you still need your parents to sign all the paperwork for you, because legally you're responsible.
Well, you can still be the publisher of a company that your parents are the stakeholders in. Like the publisher is a title, as publisher is a title, not like
it's a legal term. A publisher is legally responsible.
So take advantage of it, because that's the hook. If you can say 7-year-old publisher, then people are like, what's the 7-year-old doing? I want to like read these books and this kind of stuff. I think, but don't make being young the only hook. You want to make sure you got some stuff. I did think of one thing that I didn't mention. The previous question, like talking about an artist, do their pitches look a little bit different than a writer? I think there are a lot of things you can do to fill out your portfolio. And I'm sure there are other sessions going to be talking about things to round out your portfolio, or as Fabrice said, like creating telling a story without bubbles, telling a story in one page, this kind of thing. But just know that the people who are putting a book together, and if you do put your own anthologies together, the balance of the book sometimes is what the editor is thinking of, rather than, is this person good or bad? Is this art good or bad? Because you're looking for a collection of things that are going to make up the balance of the project. So if you do get rejected from something that you thought you were a really good fit for, don't be discouraged, because you don't know what the balance of that project is going to be.
I'll give you an example from Enrica. Like, I didn't get into Enrica's What Fresh Hell Is This anthology, and we talked about it later. Like, because we were table next to each other at Comic-Con, and she like at some point was like, oh, like you were way too something like we didn't take anything that was that faithful to the source material, and like we just didn't do it. So like, I mean, whether that was so you never know. Like, there are plenty of stories I literally don't take because they're too long or too short or too much like something else?
Well, Russell, you didn't get into that last book because I wasn't the editor on that one. Because if I had seen that you were pitching, I totally would have just accepted it.
Well, of course.
It would have been it.
Of course. That's just sight unseen.
Yes, exactly. So I will fire that person immediately. Who did that.
Okay, so I think the to come back to this youngest age, like I think the ethos and the actual technical definition may be slightly different. Like if you want with your friends to make a book,
Just do it.
like you can theoretically, let's call it what age is the youngest age you can become the editor-in-chief?
That works.
Like that's like 3, I don't know, like 1, like 5. There's just a Kickstarter the other day my friend Ryan ran for his kid who's 7 and made his first comics. So like I don't think there's any young age, and the younger the better, honestly. Like screw up when you're young. Like if you're 10 now, like start doing it, because like you have plenty of time to do bad things before you're like ready to actually like make good stuff, and that kind of learning is invaluable when you're younger. So yeah.
But you're never too old either. I want to just sort of put that out there. There are a lot of people who they're coming into comics, or they think I'm too old, or I would never even think about that, or I've never done that before. You are never too old to get into this either. And I think that what we're seeing in comics now is this wide spectrum of different projects that you would never have imagined before. I saw a really great book the other day from in back this project called Gone Fishing. And it's about, it was about a man on a desert island who has Alzheimer's, who goes fishing for his memories. And I can't wait for this book to arrive, but it's a topic I had not seen in comics yet. I'm so excited to see that. And so any topic, any kind of thing, you're never too young. If you're cool and keen enough to put that together, just do it. And you're never too old to do this either, because this is something that's this is an explosion of topics and projects and people in comics now. It's just really a new golden age, I think.
And it's not because you haven't seen your topic anywhere that it doesn't have, there's no room for it. There's room for everything.
Yeah, especially now. All right. 2 quick questions before we wrap up here. First, I'll just do this one quickly. How old were you when you started writing? Lori.
Tricky.
That's a good question. I need to think about it.
I'll start then. I thought that I was in my 20s, but my mother recently sent me a like folio with stuff that I did when I was like 12. So I guess 12. But seriously, in my mid 20s probably is when I started seriously writing. Fabrice?
Well, I did fanzines and comic book fanzines when I was like 14, 15, something like that. And I was writing and drawing. But professionally, and that's the thing, I've been a journalist before I was a comic book writer. So my first professional published comic book, I was 38. So I was old.
I was about middle school when I started writing, like had that thought in my head, I want to be a writer. But I didn't start writing comics until I was almost 30. So.
Yeah, I would say I'm about the same.
Yeah.
So like 12 and mid 20s to 30s.
Look at all of us, similar, minus Fabrice, who.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm the old man here.
But you were doing. I want to talk. I don't know if we covered this, so I want to talk about Mutiny for a second as we wrap up. But besides the writing itself, is there a strategy to get your story selected? So maybe like top tip to get your story selected. We'll go round robin, and then we'll finish up. Where haven't I started recently? Fabrice.
Oh no, let Lori start.
Lori.
She hasn't talked a lot.
For me, like, look, it's a comic anthology, so like as much as like a pitch is cool, like if you can show me a page of art, like a sequential art especially, like that really helps. Like sell me.
Enrica?
Follow directions. Anytime you submit, even if you're absolutely sure you understand what that project is and you love the description, all that other stuff, anything the publisher has put out there that says, read this, read it. And don't think you know it, read it. Because if you, it's not personal, but if you submit something that they said don't do, not only will they reject you, they will be mad at you and they will remember. So follow directions, and it should be, and if you're dealing with a company that's got so many things, you just don't have time to read it, then you don't have time to submit to that company. It's not going to be a fit, and it's just going to be a problem. So feel the chemistry of the submission page and read what they have for you, because they're telling you what they want, and make sure you tick all those boxes. Otherwise, what's the point?
Fabrice.
All right. So my company, Fair Square Comics, is a little bit different than other companies because we give a chunk, like 99% of our books are going to be from immigrants, minorities, and underrepresented categories of creators. So for the books themselves, anyone who wants to pitch, you're welcome. But if you're not all those categories, you will not be a priority. Our priority are those underserved categories of creators. That's the basis. Now, we have this new project called Mutiny that is a magazine that is going on Kickstarter right now. And this magazine is a little bit more open in terms of submission. There still be a priority, like the priority will go for minorities, immigrants, underrepresented categories of creators, LGBTQ, disabled, all that. But there are still spots for everybody else. As long as you're good, just be good. And I'm looking for stories that are first premium. And when I say premium, that means that it has to be well written, well built, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's stupid to say that, but a beginning, a middle, and an end for a story is basic. The second thing is that you can come without an artist, and I will find an artist for you, but I would prefer, for budgetary reasons, but also for as a matter of coherence, to have fully formed teams.
Okay. Now, well, let's wrap it, starting with Fabrice. Then you were talking about Mutiny Magazine. Hey, who's going to be on the cover of that first issue?
So we have 5 covers.
Who's the cover story for who's the big cover story artist?
Oh, you mean for issue 0?
Yeah.
That's Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
I cut an exclusive interview with him like a month ago, and that's how hard it is to bring a project together. I mean, the idea of Mutiny came from years ago, from my experience of being a comic book journalist back in my home country, and I designed Mutiny as a tool to bring more exposition to the categories of creators that I was mentioning, the people that are just like me, immigrants and minorities and underserved categories of creators. So in order to get more spotlight and more marketing power, we're using the attractivity of big brands, Marvel, DC, Image, and all those beautiful brands. And with their blessing, because we have a noble cause behind all this, we are going to have editorial content that will cover all those companies, and they will discover over 60 pages of original comic content from people like us.
It's a great idea, and Fabrice has been doing this forever, both comic journalism and editing, and the link is in the chat over on Kickstarter. It's already funded, and I'm super excited. All right, so Lori, I know you have a Kickstarter going, so we're gonna break it up with Enrica. Let's talk. Tell us about where we can find you.
Find us at redstylo.com, on Facebook, on Twitter, website. We will have Kickstarter coming up for a new, the next volume in the series Ninja Bear. If you like ninjas and you like bears.
I love it.
Ninja Bear.
Ninja Bear. I want to read that.
We're doing that soon. And then the 6th installment of Crossing will be out a little bit later this year. So find us everywhere.
Awesome. And Lori, let's talk about your awesome book that you have on Kickstarter now.
Yeah, we're currently running a campaign for The Surgeon. It's a post-apocalypse Western. Nomadic physician struggles to survive in a savage frontier of the poor and powerless, trying to balance her calling as a healer with the necessity of killing for survival. And she's a badass. It's just uh8studios.com/Kickstarter. You can check it out. We're just shy of the goal right now, actually. So
And I back all of these people's projects. I love all of these companies. From Fabrice, I have nothing but great things to say about him. Enrica, I table with at Comic-Con. Her books are always amazing. Lori, not only do I back their books, but people always talk about how amazing her books are. And of course, my books are amazing also. But like, I'm the
Yes, they
moderator,
are,
so
Russell's books are pretty amazing.
thank you, thank you.
Pretty amazing.
Russell is our hero. He's our
Oh
hero.
man.
So you can find me at wannabepress.com, and you can find all of my novels as well at russellnolte.com, where you can get some free books and stuff for signing up for our mailing list. Please do check out everyone's work here. Not only will it be very impressive, but you will be very and thoroughly entertained. And Lauren, hi again.
Hello again. That was fantastic. Thank you all for your insight. That was all very informative, and I appreciate all the information I learned. So with that said, I'm going to put a link in with our link to Creating Conversations. We work with several different small bookstores, or independent bookstores, I should say. Creating Conversations is one of them. And some of the items that we've talked about tonight should be listed there for purchase, as well as other authors for this week. So take a look at Creating Conversations, support your local bookstores. So with that said, I've got 3 prizes to raffle off, and I've chosen 3 at random. So for our blind bag that has some awesome Funko Pops and some Star Wars goodies, I'm going to put in the email. If you are one of our winners, email us at libraryprograms@cityofmissionviejo.org. For our blind bag, we have Nikki Abrash. And I believe, yep, you are still on. So Nikki Abrash, you are our blind bag winner. Congratulations. Our winner of the Guardians of the Galaxy poster is Eliza, and there's no last name. So Eliza, no last name, you won our Guardians of the Galaxy poster. And then our final prize winner for Glitter by April Lynn Pike, who is tomorrow's author, is Cynthia Clark Harvey. So if you are one of those winners, please email us at the email I just put in the chat box, and we will make sure that you get your prize. With that said, thank you all again for this fantastic program. I'm really excited to check out your Kickstarters and your books, and support you all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Of course.
yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. And just one more thing, this is recorded and will be posted either tomorrow or Thursday on our Facebook page. So if you don't already like us on Mission Viejo Library. We're on Facebook and Instagram. So, all right. Thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope you all
Bye,
have a
everyone.
great night.
Thank you.
Stay
Bye-bye.
safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.